what exactly did your team release this week?
We've launched 3 new capabilities inside of our threat intelligence suite. The first of those is real-time signals. So what this does is it complements our existing verified intelligence that comes from our global intelligence team all across the world, 24/7 monitoring for major events. It complements that with early access, immediate awareness of potential threats that may not yet be verified, but that are in direct proximity to an organization's locations of interest. The second piece of that is threat management. So with all of this additional information coming in, you need the ability to triage that. Not everything is something that is valid. Not everything is something that an organization needs to act on. So how can you very quickly and efficiently assign those to maybe different individuals to look at it more deeply? The third component of that is social intelligence. And what it adds is the ability for an organization to monitor things that are specific to that organization that could be more of a potential threat or an emerging trend or sort of discussion that may represent a future threat specific to an organization.
Well, let's break it down a bit because that is a lot. So let's start with real-time signals. What value does that add to threat intelligence?
So what real-time signals is really helpful for is 2 primary things. One is when an organization has a need to understand, even if something is not a verified incident of some sort, but they have a need to give early awareness to that, real-time signals allows for that. It essentially says, there are things that are happening, and as soon as our intelligence team would know about it, you now have access to essentially the same data streams and tool sets that they have in order to see those things ahead of time. So you know instantly if there's some chatter about a potential shooting or some particular event or maybe a public disturbance that's happening, but not yet confirmed. And that complements our existing intelligence really well because our existing intelligence is verified. But in this case, we often hear from many of our customers, maybe they have retail fronts where they want to know if anybody mentions or there's the possibility of some sort of activity happening near those locations because they want to give it early awareness. They would much rather err on the side of safety and say, well, let's go ahead and let that location know. Let's potentially lock down for a few minutes until we get the all clear. However that organization wants to handle it is up to them, but it gives them that ability to have that awareness right away.
The other thing you mentioned that we're releasing is this concept of threat management. So you have all these signals coming in, and that's great, but you need to be able to work them through to disposition in a really succinct way. So tell us more about that. How does threat management help an organization better work through all these threats that they're receiving?
Yeah, I think one of the most common things is that everybody wants that information, but then you're presented with the challenge of how do I manage and track whether I've looked at something, whether we're acting on something. So what threat management does is it gives you that ability, right? How do I triage this information that's coming in? How do I dismiss the things that obviously are not relevant or that we're not going to take action on or that have no impact? But then it also allows me to focus on those things that are more important or that need additional set of eyes. And I can now delegate those, assign them to other individuals. I can track a status for them. And then I have a view of all of that in real time. So I know here are the items that are open and we haven't looked at. Here are those that we've dismissed. Here are those that require some additional investigation. And even things, if you're leveraging other parts of the AlertMedia product, like say incident response or our emergency mass communications capabilities, you can say these are the things that we're acting on and we're opening this as an incident or we're triggering off communication to the organization about this.
Can you give us an example of how an organization might use social intelligence?
As most people are aware of the past year, there's been an increasing number of incidents where executives that either themselves are high profile or their companies are high profile for one reason or another have been targeted. The signals around these attacks can be found in early conversations and the types of posts that individuals are making. Claims that they make that they may go do something, harm someone, follow them. And you start to see those sort of signals emerge and you know that you have something that is definitely worth taking action upon. Right now you can add additional security. You can become aware of, hey, our executive is traveling to an event or putting on a conference or going to be a keynote speaker. We need to have additional detail. We think there's a real possibility that this individual who's been out there making these claims or some followers of that others are going to use that as an opportunity to target them.